Okay, let's unpack this today.
So good.
You know how sometimes you see these, well, very vocal, often young supporters of certain political figures?
Yeah, definitely. Online personalities, influencers.
Exactly. Well, one of them, a guy named Aiden Ross, he's 23, an internet personality, and a pretty prominent MAGA supporter.
Oh, right. I think I know who you mean. Didn't he give Trump some, big gifts?
That's the one, yeah. Apparently a Rolex, even a Cybertruck, so, clearly invested.
Right.
But he recently said something, well, kind of eye-opening about his own finances.
Okay. What's the story there?
Well, this is the interesting part, the connection he's drawing. He was on a podcast with DJ Academics, and he basically said he's lost 8 figures in the stock market.
8 figures. Wow. Okay, so that's over $10 million.
Over 10 million, yeah. And here's the kicker. He specifically said it was since Donald Trump imposed those tariffs.
So he's pointing the finger directly at Trump's trade.
Directly. $10 million is.
Yeah.
Well, it makes you pause, doesn't it? And just for anyone needing a quick reminder, tariffs are basically taxes on goods coming into the country.
Yeah, taxes on imports. And that level of loss. It certainly brings the discussion about, broad economic policy down to a very personal level.
It really does. And he didn't just mention it casually either. He added, people are getting killed, me too. We all are.
We all are. So he feels it's a widespread thing affecting, well, everyone, or at least people like him.
It sounds like it. Like he's really feeling it, and he thinks these tariffs are the reason.
That sense of sort of shared suffering is interesting coming from a vocal supporter, it suggests.
Real.
Maybe a crack in the viewpoint, or at least acknowledging some maybe unintended consequences.
Well, DJ Academic's response was pretty revealing. He sort of joked, damn you over here, like, damn Kamala, come back to me.
Okay, so reading between the lines there.
Yeah.
A hint of regret, maybe.
Maybe. But then Ross also kind of rocked it back slightly, or at least added a qualifier.
Right. What did he say then?
He followed up with, it's bad. I'm not going to lie to you. It'll get better, but it's bad, though.
The it'll get better part.
Exactly. And that's where the commentary in our source material, which comes from the Ring of Fire YouTube channel, really focuses. This idea that, okay, it's bad now, but there's some long game benefit to these tariffs.
Right. This is a classic argument, isn't it? Short-term pain for long-term gain.
Yeah.
We hear that a lot with big economic shifts or policies, especially trade stuff.
Totally. But the commentator raises a really critical point about this long game defense.
Okay.
They point out that Trump's first trade war, the one involving these tariffs Ross is presumably talking about, actually kicked off way back in 2018.
2018, right. So that's quite a while ago now.
It is. And here's the thing that maybe people forget. Those tariffs Trump put in place then, they never actually went away.
Really? So they stayed through the whole Biden administration, too?
Yep. Still in effect today, apparently. We're talking about the ones on, steel, aluminum from certain places, and a whole lot of stuff from China initially.
Okay, so if they started in 2018, and we're talking now, that's nearly 7 years those initial tariffs have been active.
7 years?
That's a significant period. If something's supposed to get better in the long run, 7 years feels like a decent chunk of that long run. Yeah.
Exactly. So the commentator's question is pretty blunt. Why didn't they get better after his first trade war?
Good question. If it was all part of this grand strategy, why haven't we seen these supposed improvements materialize after all this time?
It does make you wonder what the benchmarks for better actually are. What should have improved according to the plan? GDP jobs, manufacturing coming back.
Right. And for someone like Aiden Ross, who's looking at his stock portfolio, better might mean something quite specific, maybe different from, say, factory jobs.
Sure.
And the commentator drills down even further. They ask, okay, specifically, what got better in America today because of those tariffs that Donald Trump put in place all the way back in 2018?
And also, what improved? What companies came back into the United States and built factories here and stopped producing goods overseas in those 7 years? Who did it?
So asking for concrete evidence, not just theory, but actual tangible results on the ground. Show us the factories. Show us the jobs that returned because of this policy.
Precisely. Very direct questions.
And what answer does the commentator offer?
Their answer is basically nobody.
Nobody.
Yeah. They argue that if you look back over these 7 years, you just don't see the evidence of this major positive shift, this supposed benefit of the trade war starting back then.
So challenging their whole long game narrative head on by saying, well, we've been in the long game for 7 years. Where are the results?
Exactly that. And this leads to their sort of call to action. They're
Okay.
urging people, the press, Democrats, but really anybody discussing this, to push back when they hear the long game defense, to ask these specific questions.
So demand accountability, demand evidence.
Yeah.
Don't just accept the promise of future benefits without scrutinizing the track record so far.
Right. The main takeaway they're pushing is, look, we've had 7 years of phase one of Trump's trade policies. And according to this analysis, there's just no clear, demonstrable improvement to justify the approach based on that period.
Which circles back kind of neatly, if maybe painfully for him, to Aiden Ross's situation. His own reported loss linked by him to these tariffs becomes this sort of, personal anecdote running counter to the official promise.
It really does. So just to sum up where we've been, we looked at this striking situation. A really vocal Trump supporter, Aiden Ross, saying he's lost millions, over $10 million, because of Trump's tariffs.
Yeah, a significant personal financial hit attributed directly to the policies he supported.
And we contrasted that with the analysis from the source commentary, which argues that these same policies, specifically the initial ones from 2018, have been in place for about 7 years now.
Without delivering the kind of widespread economic upturn or manufacturing return that was often part of the long game justification.
Right, so there's a real tension there between the personal experience being reported and the critique of the policy's track record over time.
It definitely leaves us with something to think about.
Yeah.
Which leads to maybe a final question for our listeners to ponder.
Okay, yeah.
Well, considering this analysis suggests 7 years of these tariffs haven't produced clear, broad improvements, what kind of evidence would convince you? What specific metrics or proof would you need to see after this much time to definitively say, yes, the long game worked, or no, it clearly didn't when it comes to trade policies like these and their real economic impact?
What would that proof look like? That's a great question to mull over.